Ever wonder what went wrong with the Flash and how we could fix it?
Let's dive deep into the issues of the Flash and how we would fix it. Hey, I'm Dalen, and if you don't know me, I make superhero movies, which you can check out on my other channel, Pollard Pictures, links in the description. I also teach people like you how to do superhero special effects for your own videos. So if you're a new superhero here, subscribe, and welcome to the league. Problem 1, story. The story is the most crucial element in crafting a compelling movie to watch. You can have incredible actors, cameos, and special effects, but the movie will lack an emotional core and character depth if it doesn't tell a good story. You can break down everything wrong about the Flash's story in this phrase: trying to do too much with too little. The Flash crammed in timelines, alternate realities, time travel paradoxes into a single movie with little character development or arcs. It left us emotionally detached from the get-go. I mean, did you cry when Supergirl died? What about Batman? Or did you weep when all the universes were about to end? Did you sit on the edge of your seat wondering how they were going to make it? Probably not. For the story was too convoluted, too uneven in their tones, and there was too much lacking to make you care enough. This Flash story was over before it even started. So how do we fix this? The key here is patience. There's no quick multiverse fixes. We gotta build up to it. So this is how I would write the Flash story for the big screens. I would break it up into 4 films. That's right, you heard me, 4 films. Let me break it down. Movie 1. The movie starts off with Nora Allen's death and his father going to prison. We see Barry Allen grow up, the challenges he faces without having his parents, his school bullies, and his crush on Iris West beginning to flourish into love. A love that she doesn't quite reciprocate initially. She sees Barry as a brother, and Barry has to work up the courage to try and tell her how he really feels. We watch him make difficult choices as he attempts to become a CSI and progress on his mother's case to prove his father's innocence. We spend a lot of time getting to know his character. You see, Barry Allen isn't very comedic or clumsy or awkward. That's more of a Wally West character. In this film, Barry Allen is humble, mature, intelligent, and optimistic. He's a romanticist, full of integrity, honesty, and somewhat a people pleaser due to his insecurities and trauma. He's a bit corny, but also serious.
Be back in a flash.
Back in a flash. Wow. Does he say that often?
Too often.
We watch him trying to take down bad guys as a CSI long before he gets powers. We see conflict happen due to his unwillingness to compromise on his beliefs and do things honestly, even when everyone around him tells him that it's okay to be a little bit in the gray. And we see him get in trouble due to his desire not to lose more people in his life. When things get really hard, Barry tends to run away from his problems and his emotions. He hasn't properly dealt with his mother's death, and that unprocessed trap trauma holds him back. The movie should be substantially great way before he becomes a speedster. A criminal named Leonard Snart is on the run, and Barry's working hard to place him behind bars as a CSI. And just when the city needs it most, Barry is hit by lightning. But rather than giving him speed, it places him in a 9-month coma. During this time, his life falls apart significantly. Criminals run even more rampant, and those Barry was meant to testify against, like Leonard Snart, get away. To make it even worse, the girl of his dreams is now even further away with another man. When he awakens from the coma, the Speed Force doesn't make him ridiculously fast to start. It's a slow and difficult progress to level up. No, he's not faster than a speeding bullet. He's just a fast runner. And you can feel that the stakes are high. He doesn't have every ability needed to begin with. Rather, he learns to stop running from his problems and start running towards them. It's a story about progression and growth. The more he begins to process and heal from his trauma, the greater his speed. We watch him level up slowly, one rogue bad guy at a time, leading to the climax with Dr. Cold, who has Iris's life on the line. In the end, the movie should really feel like you watched a romance suspense movie, ultimately winning the heart of his lightning rod. Movie 2. At this point, I'd like to call out some rules for writing a movie for a speedster. Barry will eventually become a powerhouse, but there are some rules I will have for all my movies. Rule number 1, it's a progressive level up. He can't just have a new power unless there's been a proper build up to that power. Each mile an hour faster, each new ability comes at a heavy cost, great effort, making hard choices, and growing more as an individual that is moving past his trauma. Rule number 2, infinite speed, limited by a mortal man. As mentioned by rule number 1, his speed is always limited by his own personal growth. But rule number 2 is that his speed is also limited by his mortal limitations, his need to eat, sleep, rest, heal, and muscle constraints. He can't just run out of energy in one scene, but then somehow seem to run forever later. You'll watch every footstep he takes and know that's one step less that he'll have later due to his limitations. Rule number 3, and possibly the most important one, is he can't lose to bad writing. If he can dodge a speeding bullet, then no one should be able to land a punch on him. If a villain beats him, they have to be emotionally, psychologically, or physically superior enough to challenge him. His biggest strength should be his biggest weakness. He will use his speed into situations that can get him trapped or tricked. There can be no bad writings where the Flash stops to chat with a bad guy before they make their move. No. He runs into the situation and he solves it as quickly as he can. He's fast and smart and isn't easily beaten. In the second movie, each of these rules will be fully exhibited and consistent throughout the entire film. We'll see the Flash struggle with the burden of trying to save everyone with his limited capacities. He'll want to be everywhere all the time, and certain cities and groups of people will actually hate him for not being more and not being there when they needed him. He'll get burnt out, overworked, and heavily burdened with these highly unrealistic expectations. This is where Iris comes in as his lightning rod, to teach him to slow down, to live a life outside of being a hero, and accept that he too is a person with limitations, and that only by slowing down can he be fast enough for when it matters. He will learn how to be on time and take care of the small things in his life. Gorilla Grodd will be the main protagonist in this movie, and he'll really be pushing the Flash through this learning curve. It's only as Barry learns to take care of himself, slow down, and breathe that he's able to outthink the intelligent gorilla. Movie 3, The Reverse Flash. Movie 1 and 2 have slowly been leading up to Barry cracking his mother's case. By movie 3, he's finally able to make a breakthrough and discovers that she died by the hands of the Reverse Flash. Barry is now very fast, able to save the city from an exploding bomb and nearly stop time at his peak speed. Due to his level ups and his ability increases in movie 2, he's also gotten more confident in his abilities. We see that a more powerful version of the Flash that is better able to take care of his emotions and can now face the fear and trauma of the Reverse Flash. I'm also open to the idea where the Reverse Flash has been there the entire time in movie 1 and 2, ruining his life, and even in the form of a mentor like Harrison Wells, and he has to deal with that immense feeling of betrayal. But ultimately, when Barry faces the Reverse Flash, he needs to lose horribly. The humbling experience of not being fast enough when he thought he was. This will finally drive Barry to run hard enough to finally travel back in time, which he does. He confronts Thawne in the past and chooses to save his mother's life. Movie 4. Left on the cliffhanger from Flash number 3, wondering what happens after he saves his mother's life, we are brought into movie 4, where it starts with Barry Allen waking up in a radically different world. He has no powers. Superheroes don't exist. Instead, the world is on the brink of collapse due to a war between the Atlanteans and the Mysteria, Aquaman and Wonder Woman's respective empires. The war has devastating consequences, with major cities being destroyed. Barry thinks that his actions at the Flash actually caused this alternate reality. In this timeline, he never becomes the Flash, and the other superheroes have taken different paths. Barry tries to regain his powers and fix the timeline, but he encounters resistance groups that include familiar faces with altered roles. Ultimately, it's revealed that Barry's arch-nemesis, Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, orchestrated the alteration of the timeline. Thawne manipulated events to create a world where Barry's life would be miserable. The story concludes with Barry making a personal sacrifice to restore the original timeline. Where do we go after movie 4? Well, I would hope we would build into some great Superman, Green Lantern, and Justice League movies, with this version of the Flash being in it. He's not a goofy character or janitor on the team. Rather, he's the down-to-earth, most human-like and approachable superhero. He's been through the trauma of Batman, but he's still optimistic. He teaches Superman how to slow down and carry his burdens. He's not fearless, but he goes forward anyway, and he has deep emotions that he wears on his sleeve. Can we see a dark Flash in one of these films? Absolutely. But all these Justice League films need to lead up to a finale, Crisis on Infinite Earths, where the Flash has to give his own life to save the multiverse. At this finale, you'll learn that the Flash was the one who hit himself with lightning. He was the OG, the very creator of the Speed Force, and the Flash mantle is passed on to his sidekick, Kid Flash Wally West, who becomes the new Flash for any future films. Let's move on to the next category, casting. Casting the Flash is pretty simple. You need a Barry Allen, not a Wally West. You guys can tell me who you think should be cast as the Flash in the comments below. Let's go on to problem number 3. The last thing we need to really execute these films is we need solid soundtrack and special effects. If you see my other video, you probably already know that I didn't like the soundtrack or the sound design in the Flash movie. It was kind of obnoxious and had uneven tones. The music should give a more serious and cinematic feel. But what was worse than the music in that movie was probably this. This is unacceptable. If I can make a super speed scene in 1 minute in Adobe Premiere Pro that looks better than whatever this was, then that's just sad. The effects should look and feel as realistic and epic as possible. But mainly the effects should only be used to enhance the emotional story that's already being told and not distract from it.
You can learn how to do your own special effects by clicking this video right here. Or you can watch my superhero movie by clicking this video right here. So what are you waiting for? Run, Barry, run.